Hey guys, this is the first time I'm trying one of these voiceover videos. We'll see how it goes. These clips are from the Great Western Trail out in Utah, taken during the summer during my 3-month trip around the U.S. on my 950 adventure. I figured since it was a slower collection of clips and a lot of rocks and technical stuff, would be a good one to do one of the voiceover videos. So the guy in front of me was my dad. He's actually a fairly new rider. That was his first bike, that F650gs, and he'd ridden some off-road with me before on rental bikes, that kind of thing, and back when he was in school. But the fact that he took his nice brand new scratch-free F650 on a trail like this and was able to do it, there were sections he did better than I did. Was very impressive. It was great to have him along. You can see this is, like I said, the Great Western Trail. It's rocky, and shooting with a GoPro, everything looks flat. So a lot of these sections are a lot steeper than they look. Compared to, say, the Trans-American Trail or the Continental Divide Trail, the Great Western Trail definitely has sections that are much more difficult and much more technical. It's not just, wide dirt roads. That's not to say the whole thing's like this, though. There's sections that are difficult, and then it opens up, and it's just your average dirt road. But it's a very fun trail. I'd definitely like to do the whole thing sometime. 950s have very soft front rims, actually just soft rims in general. After this section of the trip, I actually had to buy a new rim. It was bent up badly enough that the head shake between about 35 and 40 miles an hour was so bad that it would try to throw you off the bike, especially if you were slowing down, coming up to a light or something. A lot of people don't like taking big bikes on trails like this, but for whatever reason, I really enjoy it. Even though a lot of it's walking pace, slipping the clutch, that kind of thing, it's very good practice and has actually made me a much better rider on my 200. This section right here is one of those where it's a lot steeper than it looks, and if you lose momentum, you're going to have a heck of a time getting to the top of it. So I went past Dad back there and decided to go for it. Momentum is really key. Looking at this shot, Dad didn't have quite enough to make it up that hill, and he fortunately was able to get going again. His bike has hide-nows on it, and even though they were new, man, that center rib on that tire is just no good for off-road traction. I'm on MIFO Super Explorers that have 4,500 miles on them and are about dead. I've got maybe 1/8 of an inch of tread depth. Having new tires would have been fantastic. Neither of us have steering dampers on the bikes either, and though normally the 950's great, you don't need it, sometimes in the rocks, the rocks would just grab the front tire and yank the bars out of your hands, and would have been nice to have sometimes. Both of our bikes are quite fully loaded too. I was on the road, like I said, for 3 months. Dad was on the road with me for a week, but I think this was one of his first motorcycle camping trips, so he was overpacked slightly, and I just had a lot of stuff with me. So when we tipped over like this, especially after riding on this kind of difficult stuff, you get worn out, and it's nice to have another person there to help you pick the bike up. Even a low F650 is difficult to get up sometimes. On one of these crashes, Dad actually broke his kickstand switch. We got the bike upright again, and the engine wouldn't crank, it wouldn't turn over. So we had to take the bike apart on the trail and hotwire the switch so we could get moving again. And then later on he smacked the shift lever with a rock and bent that 180 degrees up against the foot peg. One of those things where having ground clearance on these rocks is nice. You gotta have a decent skid plate too. And even though Dad's got one on his F650, he smacked it hard enough that it actually, on that bike it mounts to the oil pan, it actually pushed the oil pan backwards and started leaking after that. This hill's also fairly steep. You can see I got stopped here and I'm trying to get the bike moving, rocking it and slipping the clutch. Well, I ended up digging a pretty good sized hole in the middle of the trail. And as I was walking back down the hill to see how Dad made it up, he actually got stuck in the hole that I dug. I think we were probably the first people of the season to ride this trail. There was no evidence that anyone had been out here in a long time, except maybe some quads or something. You can see some of these spots are a little soft and sandy. I'm from Indiana, we don't have sand. So it got a little exciting a few times until I got used to it. You can see here how much stuff we have on the bikes. Both of us have hard cases, and those hard cases, especially off-road, they'll hit stuff on the side of the trail, hit bushes and rocks. And Dad was, well, you can see here his cases are kind of bouncing around, and his cases actually fell off a few times. We had to hike back down the trail and go get them. When you're going this slowly, you don't notice that the bike is out of balance a little bit. By this point, I've got the Pepco Becker bags on mine, and I had broken both latches off, so I'm using ratchet straps to hold my bags on. There's always one rock that you get hung up on and you just can't get moving again. And we had left our campsite this morning, and this is probably a couple hours into the day, and the whole trail was like this, right? There were stretches where it was more open, but we were getting worn out. We're 2-3 hours into it and we've only gone maybe 4 or 5 miles. It's slow going sometimes. And of course I get moving after being stuck on that stupid rock. And there's a cattle guard, and it's not just a normal cattle guard. If you look up to the right, you'll see it's an arch made out of iron rebar, basically, welded together. There was no way we were going to get a bike over that without hurting yourself. If you tried to put a foot down, it would go through the holes, and we didn't want to risk that. So we went around, but it was rocky and off camber. I'm on bald tires, and even though I'm fairly tall, I can hardly touch the ground on a 950. And in a spot like this, it actually made it easier for Dad because he could kind of paddle along, whereas, you know, I put a foot down, I'm going to tip over. And you saw it once there. I think I may have actually fallen a second time, but didn't catch it on video. And then you see me here, you know, it's the bike's going along sideways because the back tire is just spinning. I can't get any momentum up. And then I just get it over a little bit too far. And when a big heavy bike starts to go over, you get the hell out of the way. You gotta do the backwards gold wing walk up to pick these things up, a little stuff on them too. But eventually we both made it up the hill. And you'll see I ride past my dad up here going around the 90-degree corner. He had gotten stuck about where he was standing. It was very loose right there. And those F650s have a very, very long first gear. And by the end of this trail, and I think it was this trail that really did it, he had cooked his clutch and it started slipping, and it annealed the springs and the clutch, and actually got so hot that the brass oil jet for the inside of the clutch basket had come out of the clutch shaft. So he had no oil pressure regulation in his engine. Fortunately, it was fine till we got home, but all that oil flow made the clutch drag really badly. So in addition to rough terrain, he was struggling with clutch problems a lot of the way too. You can see we're getting a little bit tired here. Dad's foot comes out because the ground's a little bit loose. And occasionally it would open up like this and we could have a little bit of a rest and get some airflow going through the bikes, cool them off. My fans were running almost constantly, but then you get kind of into this groove of moving quickly and stop paying attention. You can see Dad just kind of tipped over right there. Just catch a rock or something wrong, and that's all it takes. You can see me here, I banged my case into that rock that was sticking out. They're plastic cases, and I've actually dented the side of them in. Doing this kind of thing, next time around I'll have soft bags for sure. Those Hepcos are so wide, and they weigh something like 25 pounds a piece with nothing in them. This part of the trail was washed out pretty badly when we got up to it, and when we saw something difficult, a lot of times we'd walk it before we rode it, just to make sure we could get all the way through it and not get stuck in the middle. So here we actually put some rocks down in the trail and put some sticks down to fill in holes, because the cows, there's cows everywhere out west, and the cows had torn it up so badly we weren't sure we could make it through. And you can hear my engine revving a little bit going up this section. I didn't have any tread left, remember? And this ground was fairly soft where it was wet. So I was just spinning the wheel, throwing mud everywhere because I didn't want to get stuck. You get stuck in the mud uphill on a heavy bike, and I had a shovel with me, but I really didn't want to use it. I'm sure a more skilled rider could, stand up and just roll on through, but I'd only been riding off-road for maybe a year. It really was a beautiful scenic trail though. This is one of those places where Dad lost one of his side bags. We didn't notice for quite a ways, and it took us almost probably an hour to walk back, find the case, and then get back to the bikes. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see how the whole voiceover thing goes. I may keep doing this in the future if it makes it more interesting to watch.